Welcome to the STARS program, seniors taking active roles in society. And now, here's your host, ANITA FINLEY.
Don't turn your dial. This is going to be a very, very interesting sojourn. And it's with someone that has been in our show for many years before. His name's Jeff Pasternack. And you may read about him because he's very involved in helping organizations. But in general, he's just a nice guy. And I asked him to come on our show because it's going to be one of the most interesting interviews that I've probably done. So welcome to the show, Jeff.
Happy day, ANITA. Always a pleasure to see your smiling face.
Happy day. Wow, I don't know of anyone else who's ever done what you just did with your lovely son. And I'm going to let you tell everybody what you did.
6 years ago, I decided it was my moral obligation to show my son America. We live here in Delray Beach, South Florida, in this nice little bubble, but America isn't this bubble. America's all sorts of flavors of people and ideas and things. And so, being somewhat of a financial planner-minded guy, I basically set aside $30 to $40 a week for 6 years period of time to build up a bit of a war chest. And so I said to my wife, who I love and adore, Dana, I said, honey, 6 years from now, I'm going to take Jake on this road trip across America. And she just looked at me, rolled her eyes, and went on with the morning paper. A couple weeks later, I bought a road map, a map of the United States, and I put it up on the wall. You've seen them. They're like 4 feet by 6 feet. They're huge. And over the next 6 years, periodically, either Jake or myself would take a different colored little sticky and put something on it. So yellow was places to stay where we have clients or friends or family. Pink were restaurants that we'd seen on those TV shows, diners, dives, and drive-ins, and America's Best Barbecue, whatever those food shows are. Blue were sports things, yellow, all the different colors. And we filled this map up. And in December, I said to Dana, gosh, I can't believe we're just 6 months away from the GRTE. And she looks at me and she's like, the GRTE? And I'm like, yeah, the greatest road trip ever. She's like, you're not really going on that. I'm like, why did you think I was a liar? For all this time, I've been talking about this road trip and we're 6 months away. And then panic ensued. She was not ready for us to leave her for 7 weeks. And that didn't really stop me either. Amazon Prime is my friend. As we got closer and closer, especially the last 2 weeks before we left, all kinds of things needed to be bought that I just hadn't really thought about. And I probably spent an extra $300 or $400 on stuff that we just never used, especially when it came to hiking gear. It's hard to hike in 112-degree weather in Moab, Utah. But we did set out on June the 6th in my little Hyundai Santa Fe, and we basically had minimal planning. Maybe about 3 weeks of the 7 weeks was planned, and then the rest was just general ideas of, well, we have to head east sometime, so we'll figure that out. I think my big takeaways now was that for Jake, who's going to be 17 in a couple of months, I took 1,000 dots and I cast them down the timeline of his life. And over time, he'll fill some in. He'll connect these dots. So if he's in geology class or a theology class where they're discussing creationism versus evolution, and he can point to Mount St. Helens and have that discussion because he was there. Or when conversations of racism come up, he can talk about his experiences in Batesville, Mississippi. Or when they talk about civic activism and this political correctness that kind of sweeps the nation, he can talk about Oregon and the communities that we went to that have had to stop all festivals and parades and civic celebrations because they're so concerned that someone's feelings will be hurt or they'll be left out. So you can't have an Irish parade because the Italians might not like it, or you might have a LGBT kind of parade, but the staunch conservatives won't like that. You can't, and they've become just imprisoned by their political beliefs, and it's seized up the city budget, because if it isn't something that doesn't offend anyone, that's the only thing that can be funded. We saw fantastic religious sites. We went to the Creation Museum in Kentucky to learn all about creationism.
There's a Creation Museum.
There's a Creation Museum. It was fabulous. We were prepared to believe. And that was an interesting experience. And we went to baseball parks. We went and toured Boeing, which is the largest building by volume in the world, which is up north of Seattle. And we toured the Dallas Cowboys Stadium, the largest domed structure. And I think what I come away with is that we had all these far, there were opposites to everything. Again, Batesville, Mississippi, where my son and my friend's daughter said, well, it's Saturday night. If it was Friday night, we could go bowling because bowling is white night and they use heavy drugs that night there. But it's Saturday night. Saturday night is blacks and weed only. And Jake is like, what is all this about? Because we don't have that kind of racism in most of the United States. But in Mississippi, it's just culturally implanted in there. And so, but to see that kind of stuff there, and then these experiences in Oregon where our civically minded family who are on city councils and their budgets are frozen because they can't spend money without offending someone, right? So it's the complete opposite side of trying to respect everybody's rights and wishes.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. So you went to, how many states did you get to?
So we covered 13,278 miles through 28 states and a little bit of an artist colony in Canada over 49 days.
And what were some of your conversations like? You were together a long time.
We were together a long time, and what you quickly realize is that silence really has a place as part of every conversation. And I think the best parts of our time together were standing in awe, looking at things, and trying to figure out, how does Mount St. Helens happen? What does it mean when they say that 1,300 feet are carved off the top and that the valley floor within, 5 minutes after the eruption is 150 feet higher than where it was before, that a lake that existed doesn't, and 3 new lakes appeared, and a river's course is forever changed, and you're looking, and you look at the before picture and the after picture, and it doesn't make sense. And you're just sitting there trying to think about it, or looking at other people's political views, and all you can do is be quiet as they try to explain why they're right and why it's the best way on either side of the spectrum. And so I think a lot of our conversation that was great was really none at all. It's just being quiet and listening and taking in what we're being shown.
And so no one got sick?
We had no illness. We had no major injuries. We had I got a tick bite in Mississippi, and so it was great. I got to say to Jake, gee, can you take this tick out of my groin? And that was a whole host of comedy stuff, but we grew up getting bitten by ticks.
But it wasn't a bad tick that could cause... Right.
Nope.
Okay.
But you never know, you just keep on with the road trip. But no injuries. Scraped knees, cuts, bangs, and bruises.
And the car worked perfectly.
Car was fabulous. It was very funny. Jake I'm a little bit more of a free spirit than my son, and so we were at the Great Salt Flats and driving from Salt Lake City to Reno. And it's like 10 hours of nothing, and you go through it as far as the eye can see. It's just pearly white, shiny white ground, and you can drive on the salt flats. The Bonneville salt flat races from back in the 50s when hot rodders were taking over California and such. The salt flats are incredible. And so I said to Jacob, let's drive on that. And he's like, you can't. I'm like, what do you mean I can't? We're going to go driving. It's flat. It's you can drive on it. And he's like, no, we're not driving on it. We need the car for another 5 weeks. Other times we're in Old Station, California, which is 2 hours south of Crater Lake, is a spot on the map, northeast corner. And we had the most beautiful campsite at a national park called Big Pine. Our national parks are truly a national treasure to be protected. And so we had nothing to do the next day. We didn't have a plan. And so we went to go see SETI, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. It's a center for radio telescopes, and they have these huge arrays. SETI is a great program that's been around for decades out of Berkeley. And I wanted to go see the radio telescopes. I didn't know they were there. I just stumbled on them. And we said, oh, it's closed. It's Saturday. And I saw a little brown forestry trail sign that said Moon Springs, 12 miles this way. Well, we never found Moon Springs. We drove dirt roads, sometimes not even roads, just trails or nothing at all. I'm driving between trees as we're trying to find these springs. The car, which is black, is completely brown and dirty and dusty, and nobody cared. And one spot, there was this very rocky, chunky, big rocks to go up this hill. And I said, oh, we're going to go up that. And Jake's like, no, we're not. I'm like, of course we are. He's like, you can't do it. I'm like, absolutely can. And slowly but surely, these big big rocks. I mean, like the size of your fist and bigger, of all different shapes. They totally could have punctured a tire. And we go up this thing, and he's like, you can't do this. And I'm like, I can do this. And so much of our trip was, he sees me as an old man. I mean, I'm 49, balding, paunchy, and yet I climbed rocks that he didn't think were climbable at Arches National Park in Moab, Utah. But I grew up climbing rocks as a kid. We would scamper around the Potomac River. Here in South Florida, there's no rock to climb. At Wellington Mall, the little kids' playground? I mean, so getting him in touch with nature was spectacular. And I think that people you could do, all of your audience could go to Moab, Utah and see the beautiful things there from the comfort of a tour bus. That Arches National Park is totally accessible. You could see all the beauty right from the air-conditioned comfort of a bus and not deal with 112-degree weather.
Okay, so I have so many questions. Did you learn a lot about him that you didn't know?
I don't think I learned anything new about him, but what I did learn was that he's definitely a blend of my wife and I in all kinds of ways. And where I am much more free-spirited and whatnot, he has a bit more of Dana in him and is a bit more restrained. That I learned that I failed in getting him in touch with nature because here in Florida, nature mostly wants to kill you. And while we go canoeing back in the Everglades at Arthur C. Marshall National Park up there in Delray, that's not Boulder, Colorado, where you can go climbing mountains for free. And, if you have your gear, you just go. So I learned that he's a blend of Dana and I, and that the things in me that he has, some are ready to be used as a person. But that the happy day magic that gets me all kinds of special favors from the world because I give and you get back in that karmic kind of way, he knows it exists, he sees it all the time, and he just doesn't know the words to say, the way to smile, the body language to make it happen, but he recognizes now that it exists, and he will be able to use that with great effectiveness later.
So just tell everybody you're listening to Jeff Pasternack, who is it's very special, and you've heard this, I think, coming over the airwaves, and this is quite a tribute to fathers and sons. As a matter of fact, I'm wondering how many people are listening now. What about mothers and daughters? There's probably something like this for mothers and daughters, but what you were able to do is you decided to do it, you saved up for it, you saved the time, and you went and did it, and that's very special. It must have been very important. You only have one child, and that's, so you wanted him not only to see the world, but I think to see you, to be with you. We'll never forget that. You know that.
Yeah, and, people often comment on the father-son thing, but for the last, I think when Jake was 10, I took him on a trip. We just went away for a weekend, and I said to him in the car, since he was 5 years old, we had this concept of, look, if you've got something to say, it might get you in trouble, but you get amnesty. You just declare amnesty, say what you got to say, and there'll be no punishment. We may have to fix something, but do that. And when he was 10, I said, listen, Jake, we're going on our first trip. It's just you and I. We're not going to be father and son. We're going to be an older guy and a younger guy hanging out. And if you want to call me Jeff instead of Dad, you can do that. And we'll be in that role on this trip. And if something comes up where I have to become Dad, no worries, I'll just become Dad. So by the time we got to this trip, it really was just an older guy and a younger guy hanging out, seeing the world. And not once in this whole trip that I have to step into the role of dad or father or whatnot. And he didn't have to step into the role of son. It was more mentor-mentee. I got to be a guide. I got to be a shaman. From my internal piece, my most father-son moment came this kind of like the second keynote moment of my life. We were at this Big Pine National Park, no one around us for at least a mile. We were camped right on the riverside, and you heard it's the rolling rapids all night long. And we got back to the campsite around 6 o'clock. And okay, you instantly start to play with fire. You build a fire and you play with it. We threw rocks in the river, but you start to run out of stuff, and it's not going to be nightfall until 10. So there's an old band from the 60s and 70s. They're called America. And so I put on America's Greatest Hits. And after like 2 songs, he and I are standing arm in arm, arms over each other's shoulders, singing to the river. And we did that for 45 minutes. And then nature rewarded us a little while later because the gap in the trees that the river flowed through, the Milky Way came out, and you could see those pinks and the yellows of the gases and the stars splattering through the sky. And it was just, and here we are singing. And that was a father-son moment to me.
Yes, and you love the
inside.
singing. I know you've gone on many trips over for weeks to go hear big singers because you like that. Well, I guess my other question is, he's going away to college.
Yeah.
In another year?
2 years.
2 years.
A year and a half, yeah.
And so you're not going to have him like this anymore. So I think it was the right thing to do.
Well.
There's something, right? You're planning something else?
Yeah, so I decided a month ago, maybe not even a month, 2.5 weeks ago. So, funny thing, husbands and wives. So most of my friends said, you mean your wife is letting you go on this? And I said, let has never factored into our relationship. I just go and do. And she just goes and does. And we want people to have fun. So I decided 2 weeks ago that I needed to do something else a couple of years down the line because I have 9 years left of a plan. I need a 4-year activity. So I've decided, I think at this moment, it will either be one of two things. I will either do Burning Man in 2021 or I will do Glastonbury in 2021. But one of those huge festivals, I think I have to go and experience that. And so the plan right now, Burning Man 2021, and Jake will be a sophomore in college, so why not come spend 10 days? If he wants, but we're going to do that up real nice. I mean, this trip was in my car, camping, sleeping outside, friends, family, whatever. Burning Man, we're absolutely going to have a fancy
And where is
RV.
that? I don't remember.
That's in the Nevada desert.
Okay.
Black Rock.
Okay.
And there's nothing there but a desert.
All right. Now, something you also did, because people were saying, well, he didn't do anything with his wife. Yes, he did. What? That was a beautiful story. I think we probably have time.
So you make these deposits and withdrawals into the love bank of your relationship, and I tend to take big withdrawals, so I have to make frequent deposits. So a friend and client of ours has been saying to me for years, stay at our place in Sicily, stay at our place in Sicily. And so finally I said, okay, I've got to make a big deposit into the love bank just before this trip, although it turns out I'm over withdrawn anyway. But I decided to go ahead and surprise Dana with a trip to Sicily.
And that's funny. Do you imagine surprising your wife with a trip to Sicily? This isn't like you just back for the weekend.
You're right. So I tortured her for about 4 weeks. I told her she was going. I took her to the Delray Beach, to that pavilion there, and I read a poem announcing a great trip. And for the next 4 or 5 weeks, I would send her clues. But the clues could lead her to think that we were either going to the Dragonback Mountains down in São Paulo, Brazil, or that we were going to go to, she never once guessed Sicily. The other place she thought was Hong Kong because a lot of my clues were around dragons and such. But there's a Sicilian defense in chess called the Dragon Defense. And there's all kinds of grit and power about the wines of Sicily. And everything was around that. 3 days before we left, she broke down in tears and couldn't stand the suspense anymore. And so finally I said, okay, we're going to Sicily. And she was so relieved, so excited, and then the passion really kicked in.
And you stayed there for how long?
It was 8 nights. We did Palermo for a couple of nights, Taormina, which is on the Ionian Sea on the east coast of Sicily, and then another couple nights in Palermo.
So that was good. See, we have to invent some sort of a robot and put Jeff in there so other men can buy it, because you really do understand. And I have to always attribute your parents. I don't know your parents at all, but they did something to you. They either are that way and then you caught it, or I always blame the parents in a way. This isn't just casual. You have a certain philosophy. You have a certain way about people. And I just have to bring this up that Jeff and I have been friends. I mean, we haven't gone to a lot of things together, but we've really been friends. We know each other and we've done this. And after my husband passed away, and it was just probably a few weeks, I get a call from Jeff, said, I'm coming for lunch or breakfast or something. And I said, what? He said, yeah, I'm coming. I'm going to take you to lunch. No, I'm coming to your house. We're going to have lunch. Don't do anything. I said, really? I mean, that was very surprising. No one did that for me. And that was amazing. And we did. We had a wonderful talk and a wonderful time. And that's just how you are. And so now I know And you can talk about your business for a minute because I think it's important. That's the kind of a man that you're dealing with. So why don't you talk about your business?
Yeah, we're an old-time Washington, D.C. bookkeeping, accounting, and tax practice. But what makes our practice different is that, yeah, we certainly produce the tax returns and the profit and loss sheets for businesses and things like that. But at the core, this is really all about the human. And so we take this holistic approach to bookkeeping, accounting, and tax. Why are you working? What are the emotional drivers? What are your hopes and dreams and aspirations? And I crawl around inside people's headspace because they wear so many hats. So a practice like ours, there's 4 of us in the office. We have our Italian stallion of tax, Louis Padovano, and Jerry is our bookkeeper, and she's got 30 years experience. And Dana, my wife, is a lifetime of experience dealing because her grandfather and her father were both accountants. In fact, we have one of her grandfather's clients is still a client of ours. He's 94. I wish he would stop driving to the office, but okay. And so there's 4 of us at the practice.
Don't forget your mother.
Yeah, well, Mom is so now when we call Mom, if it's during the day, she says, because she's now retired, so she says, technical support is closed. Please call later. And she just hangs up on us.
But she really is the founder of this.
Yeah,
That's
she's
important.
the founder. And she said in this this ethic that we have, which is that it's all about the humans. And so we have 180-ish clients or so that we've worked with this year, 180 humans. And I always stress the human. And a practice our size should have 600, 700, 800 clients because they run like a mill. And we don't. We run like a family, and our clients are our family. When I travel, look, this road trip, we stayed with clients. I've always slept in their homes.
Oh, you didn't tell me that.
Yeah, so they make it possible, and they're thrilled to see you. I travel 50 nights a year anyway. As I mentioned before our show started, a client of ours passed away on Sunday. I canceled everything on Tuesday, and yesterday I flew up to D.C. in the morning and flew back. We're 2 weeks to the end of tax season. If we were a big mill grinding through tax stuff, I never would have been able to take this off. But this man and his family have been part of my family for 40 years at a time where no one wanted to work with young, beautiful women accountants in Washington, D.C. in the 70s. This man stepped up and did it. And as a pillar of his community, the rabbi for the city, he stepped up and did it, and that somehow made it okay for other movers and shakers of Washington to find her as well. And so how could we not go to celebrate the beauty of his life? And that's really what's different about our practice. It's all about the people.
What's the name of the practice?
Pasternack Associates. How creative is that?
Yeah, that is good. And let's just give a website or a phone number, whatever you want.
Yeah, the website is taxbypa.com, and the phone number 561-235-2829.
Good, because I want people to know, listen, you are in business, but what you did is fascinating. I bet you're going to be asked to speak a lot of places.
Yes.
I would think so.
It's a fun time, and why not share? And that's another great thing. So when I have clients, and they're young, I have a lot of younger clients these days, I want them to plan for a trip like this. They should go see America. It isn't here in South Florida. This is one piece. So I tell them, look, we're going to put aside this amount of money every month for retirement planning, put aside this amount for college. We're going to put aside $40 a week. You're going to put away for a road trip 6 years when your child is 16. And they all look at me funny, and then they all know the story.
Well, not everybody, though, has the capacity and the philosophy that you do. So it's a good idea. And so now, would you have been as happy, or not, let's just say your son, would he have been as happy if your wife went on this? It would have been different.
It would have been very different.
Yeah.
So Dana and I, for years, have had the same kind of family policy because I travel so much. So the policy is very simple. I will call you in the morning to let you know I survived the night, and I will call you at night to let you know I survived the day. And this provides her with peace and comfort because she knows I take risks and live life a little bit more passionately and risky than she does. And it makes it easier for her just to think in terms of 2 phone calls and not be bothered with the rest of the
And
nonsense.
I think your son probably learned more about you about taking risks, because it sounds like you said he was partially like she is, and then right.
We're with my old best friend in Boulder, Colorado, and he says, let's go rock climbing this morning. I don't go rock climbing, neither does Jake, but we got Jake into the carabiners and all the gear, and Jake climbed a 100-foot rock up
Using the things that, what have you called it?
No, he had the ropes there just to provide him, if he fell,
right.
The ropes, would catch him. But no, he free climbed all the way up 100 feet.
And you did?
No, I don't do that.
But he did, so now he
must
have been very proud of that.
Yes, and then he found his way back down, which can be just as scary. And so then when I sent Dana the picture, and Jake's this little tiny spot on this rock cliff way up, and she's like, what is he doing? And where are you? And how come I don't see a guy? Like, she wants it to be a Disney packaged program of security and safety and insurance policies. No, this is America at its boldest, where, no, there is no protection. You are responsible for your survival. He was responsible for climbing up and responsible for climbing back down.
I can see. I'm probably more like Dana. I have to tell you from listening to all this. I'm a little bit more. But you certainly, you bring it all together, and I really admire you so much for this. So you're now thinking you're going to go to your next big event. But in going across America, what was the best place that you found?
In all my travels of hitchhiking across this country and up and down the coasts in Europe and the islands and everything I've done, there's only one place in the world I ever wanted to go back to, and that was Crater Lake. And so we found our way to Crater Lake, Oregon. There was, June 24th, 11 feet of snow on the ground because of global warming, you understand. So they had 11 feet of snow on the ground, but we got to this very, very special place that I had been 25 years earlier. And to be able to go back there and to share that spot,
Yay.
that scene with my son.
That's, so great. Listen, this is a great joy for me. Thank you. Thank you. I know people listening are just clapping. Yay. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.